The foundation of the studio came kind of in two parts. There was an original seed team from 2K Boston, and all of them are BioShock 1 veterans. And that includes like about half of our leads group, Alyssa, myself. And then the Australian studio was brought in to work on BioShock 2 as well. And most of 2K Australia worked on the first game.
2K has a airplane hangar full in Marin County, and it doesn't have any games presence there. Seems like it would be a great place to have a game studio. And at that point, we were looking at trying to figure out how to get games done in the other studio. We had more awesome games that we wanted to make than we had the people to make them. And somehow those two ideas came together from, look, airplane hangar, no games studio, and we had a core set of folks, a bunch of people who were interested in potentially coming out and trying to start up a new studio, something new from the ground up. And so we had a small group of people who we agreed to come out.
And then we started to very slowly and through a very stringent interview process bring in the top talent in the Bay Area and cherry pick, essentially. And I'm now very proud of the group we put together. There is really no dead weight, and I am consistently surprised by their talent and their passion for BioShock, many of them coming from outside of the franchise.
Well, we've been working with the Australian studio for a long time. The Australian studio was a huge part of making the first BioShock. And I think a lot of what makes that work is that we have a relationship between people we've been working on engines together, we've been working on technology together, we've been working on games together for a long time. We have that relationship and we kind of know each other.
2K Australia are very much a sister studio to 2K Marin, and in fact to 2K Boston on BioShock 1. They're filling a very similar role on BioShock 2. Our tech group is based there, and many of our content personnel actually also are based out of Australia, and we kind of video conference constantly and are working on the game more or less as if they were in the same room.
And we're also benefiting just from our experience on BioShock. I mean, that was, we worked with them so closely. I think if it weren't for the Australian studio, we wouldn't have a lot of the engine features that we did, as well as the demo. That was something they came in and got that consumer demo ready for us, which was hugely successful. So we were able to establish, it wasn't just phone calls, it was these polycom systems, video conferencing. And we had people who were just so dedicated, they'd come in at like 4 in the morning to spend more overlap time on these video conferencing systems. So it definitely wasn't perfect, but it was a learning experience. And so now on BioShock 2, we're definitely taking advantage of all the things we learned. Having the exchange program, we have a lot of volunteers from Marin who are willing to go to Australia in return. We've got video conferencing systems in all our meeting rooms, as well as Australia, so that we're like running multiple meetings at times. And being in Nevada, we're actually closer to Australia, so we have more overlap time with them.
So it's not like starting fresh where you're like picking a random studio out of the air and being like, hey, people halfway across the world, let's work on a game together. You're like, oh, these guys have a certain set of skills and a certain set of things that they do better than anybody. And if they're on this project, they're absolutely the right people to be working with. So it really starts from that. We were really lucky with the Australian studio because we have had a lot of chances to have people come back and forth. We've got a little exchange program going on right now where we have, we've had a bunch of level designers and artists and character modelers and tech guys who worked on the first project who are coming out to Marin, both to meet the team out here and to get to know some of the new folks they hadn't met before, but also to share some of their knowledge with us about some of the techniques they've used to make levels great and make characters great in the past.
I think maybe the reason why that relationship works for us, despite the fact that maybe people think it's unorthodox, is that the minds that shaped the 2K Australia studio and 2K Marin, which is sort of a child of the culture that comes out of 2K Boston and beyond, and 2K as a whole, frankly. The minds are very much of sort of similar bent. The people who are hired for 2K Australia have very similar priorities, and they've always worked in a symbiosis. And so we actually can't imagine working without them. Like it may look strange from the outside, but I guess so does a marriage, right?